Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today I'm doing an Ojama deck profile. So I promised one and here it is. I'm really excited for this because I built this deck really interestingly. It's a really fun deck to play around with because it either locks your opponent completely down, locking all 5 of their zones down, or just spams out a bunch of monsters to go into some awesome link monsters. And plus you have the Smug Lord himself, Ojama Emperor, as the new boss monster of the entire deck. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description because we have some awesome rewards for you guys, like getting your name in the description of every single video, getting a signed card sent to you in the mail, or even getting to request a deck profile every single month like this one. So let's get straight on into this. So first off, we are going to be playing 3 copies of Ojama Yellow. I don't know how many of you actually watched Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, but if you did like Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, definitely hit that like button and comment down below so I can give you a heart of your favorite scene with the Ojama monsters during Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, which is really funny. They actually all had the same flavor text for the normal Ojamas, which is Ojama Green, Ojama Black, and Ojama Yellow, or Ojama Black, Ojama Green, and Ojama Yellow, which we play 3 copies, or 2 copies of green, 2 copies of yellow, and 2 copies of black. And the flavor text reads, "He's one of the Ojama trio. It's said that he butts in by any means necessary. It's also said that when the 3 are together, something happens," which all of them share that together. They all share that flavor text, which is really cool. I really like that they share the flavor text because it's kind of interesting that you have 3 normal monsters that share that, and it's true to the show. They all did butt in, and they were generally obnoxious, but I loved them in the series. It was great. So then we play 3 copies of Ojama Red. Ojama Red's one of those ways that I was talking about earlier, how this deck spams like crazy. Because what Ojama Red does is when this card is normal summoned, you can special summon up to 4 Ojama monsters from your hand in attack position. That's nuts because you have ways to search your copies of Ojama Yellow, Green, and Black directly from your deck in the form of Ojama Magic, which is really easy to resolve. And then we play 2 copies of Ojama Blue. So a lot of decks just play a single copy of blue, but I like 2 copies of blue because when this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can add 2 Ojama cards from your deck to your hand. Really easy to resolve. It's a good card if you're going second to have to normal summon, even just to attack into an opponent's monster. Just search your deck for 2 cards, and it's really helpful to be able to do that. I really like this card as a 2 of. Then we play 3 copies of Rescue Cat. Rescue Cat, when it's normal summon, you can banish it, and then when you do, you get to special summon 2 level 3 or lower beast type monsters from your deck to your side of the field. And the monsters special summoned by this effect are destroyed during the end phase. You just send this card to the graveyard, which is not that big of a deal at all, because you special summon something like a copy or of 2 copies of blue to your side of the field and then swing at your opponent with both of them, or special summon 2 of them and go into an XYZ play or a link play or something like that. And it basically could be essentially a +2 if you swung with both copies of blue into a monster that had low attack points. Search 4 cards out of your deck and then go crazy with whatever you want to summon. And then we play a single copy of Armed Dragon level 3. So the Armed Dragon level 3 is a mandatory search off of our copy of Ojama. So you just play it as a 1-of with the Armed Dragon level 3. Plus you can normal summon it for basically for free off that card. But you just play it as a 1-of because you don't want to go into 5, 7, or 10. Because it's a little harder to go into those. And that's not what this particular Ojama deck does. I wanted to keep it as pure as possible for an Ojama deck. And that's about as pure as possible as you can get. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we play a lot of spells. So for the spell cards, we're playing a single copy of Terraforming because we search a lot in this deck. We search copies of Ojama Country, Fusion Recycling Plant, and stuff like that, or which are fusion spell or our field spells, which is really helpful. 1 copy of Instant Fusion. Instant Fusion is really good in here because you can special summon your Ojama Knight to your side of the field, which is kind of helpful for link plays and stuff like that. It's a good fusion material, but it's also good for link plays with the Instant Fusion as well. 1 copy of Fusion Recycling Plant. You need to get to polymerization as quickly as possible because you want to lock your opponent out of 3 of their zones on the first turn. Usually with your Ojamas, you want to go first so you can use that. But basically what this card does is once per turn you can discard a card to add a copy of Polymerization from your deck or graveyard to your hand, and then once per turn during your end phase you can target 1 monster in your graveyard that was used as fusion material and for a fusion summon and add it back to your hand. So you got to pick favorites and pick either green, yellow, or black. You guys decide that on your own. But Then we play 3 copies of Ojama. Ojama, if this card is sent from your hand or field to the graveyard, you get to add 1 each of your green, black, and yellow from your deck to your hand, which is really nice because you can discard it. Like, you can instantly get an Ojama King if you have Ojama and Fusion Recycling Plant in your hand. You can just use a Fusion Recycling Plant to add a Polymerization from your deck to your hand, discard Ojama, and then immediately search black, green, and yellow, and then get a Polymerization as well, and then Fusion Summon into King in defense position, and then all you have to have is a Ground Collapse in your hand, and you immediately get a lock where your opponent can't Special Summon at all, or Normal Summon at all, because you're locking all 5 zones down. Then we play 3 copies of Ojama. Ojama is really good because it lets you send Ojama from your hand to the graveyard, or if you're a field to the graveyard, and then add from your deck to your hand an Ojama monster with a different name, and an armed dragon monster from your deck to your hand. Then, you immediately, after this card resolves, you can normal summon one of those monsters, and then during your main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard to target 3 of your banished Ojama monsters and shuffle them into the deck, and then you have to draw a card, which is really good. I like that ability to be able to draw that extra card and shuffle back like Pot of Avarice style back into the deck to be able to draw additional cards. Then we play 3 copies of Ojama Country. Ojama Country is really, really, really good. This card is insanely good, and it's basically one of the ways that the entire deck even works, because what this card does is it lets you once per turn send an Ojama card from your hand to the graveyard to special summon an Ojama monster from your graveyard. And then when you control a face-up Ojama monster, you switch their attack and defense. It lets you shield and sword their attack and defense. So if you have something like Ojama King on your side of the field, he becomes 3k attack, which is super nice to be able to do, and you kind of have to have it when you have Ojama Emperor on your side of the field as well. It comes in really handy when you have Ojama Emperor. Then we play 3 copies of Obedience School. Obedience School lets you, if you control no monsters, special summon 3 level 2 or lower beast type monsters with different names from your deck, and their effects are negated, but if they're normal monsters, they're already negated because they don't have effects. And also, they are destroyed during the end phase, and if this card is activated, you cannot special summon a monster in the extra deck, except for beast monsters this turn. That's fine. Usually we're just going to go into Emperor, or Emperor, King, or Knight. It depends on which one you're going to go for. Then we play 3 copies of Polymerization because you need to go into your fusion spells as quickly as possible to grab your Ojama monsters to basically get King out of the deck onto the field, because you want to lock your opponent out, because this card makes it so they can't use 3 zones, and then Ground Collapse makes it so they can't use 1 zone, and so that's really good. That equals 5 and locks them completely out of their monster zones. Then we play 3 copies of Ground Collapse. This card lets you select 2 zones on your opponent's side of the field. This card's really old. It came out of Pharaoh's Servant back in the day. This is like 4th pack ever released. This card came out of. It lets you target 2 monsters on your opponent's side of the field, and those selected zones cannot be used as long as this card remains on the field, which is really good to be able to just lock your opponent out of 2 zones. If you draw 2 of these, your opponent's pretty much screwed. They can't use 2 of their zones unless they have a Twin Twister or something like that. Just summoning to 1 zone, good luck making a bunch of Link monsters with 1 zone. I'd love to see it. And then we play 3 copies of Call by the Grave. Call by the Grave is really helpful in here because basically what this card does is it lets you stop hand traps, which is basically the only reason you play it. Being able to stop those hand traps comes in really pivotal because you don't want to... you just don't want to have to deal with them, to be honest. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the solo trap that we play in the deck, which is a single copy of Ojama Pajama. We play it just for the name. I love the name of this card, but it's a really good card because what it does is if an armed dragon monster you control and or a light machine fusion monster you control would be destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can banish an Ojama card from your hand instead. From your hand, field, or graveyard instead. And then during your turn, you can activate one of these effects. During your main phase, you can add an Ojama card from your deck to your hand, and then discard a card, which could be your Ojama. Or if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon as many of your banished Ojama monsters as possible. That is really, really, really good to be able to special summon all those cards, and it's just an awesome card overall, and it's actually my favorite artwork out of them all, besides Ojama, because it has an armed dragon on it, of course. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck and definitely chaz it up. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing a single copy of Ojama Emperor. Ojama Emperor is really good because you have to put 3 beast monsters into it, including an Ojama monster. And then while Ojama Country is in your field spell zone, if this card gains 3,000 attack, and also it cannot be destroyed with card effects, and your opponent takes any battle damage you would have taken from attacks on the field instead. So basically, you don't take any battle damage, which is really good. And you can target a non-link Ojama monster in your graveyard and special summon it. And also for the rest of the turn, you cannot special summon monsters from an extra deck except for fusion monsters. That's totally fine. It basically just locks you out of link monsters, which is fine, because you're basically just trying to get King on the field at that point to swing at your opponent with both of them. We play 2 copies of Ojama King. It's really easy to go into 2 of these. It's not hard at all to resolve 2 copies of Ojamagic and then get 2 polys and then fuse into both of these. Basically lets you select 3 zones on your opponent's side of the field, and those zones can't be used. And plus it's a 3k beat stick if you have Ojama Country on the field, and it's 3k defender if you don't. 1 copy of Ojama Knight. Ojama Knight lets you target 2 zones your opponent controls, and they can't use them. I just play it as a 1-of in here. You could potentially bump it up to 2, but I just play it as a 1-of because I usually don't fusion summon in this card that much. I usually go for King or Emperor more, because King is just really good to lock those zones out, and linking into Emperor is just better. And you already play Ground Collapse, so I just play this as a 1-of for my instant fusion target. 1 copy of Crusadia Mech Knight Avermax. Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax is the best extra deck monster in the entire deck, besides the Ojamas, because this card is ridiculously easy to go into, especially with how easy this deck spams cards out on the field. And it's just an overall amazing card. Boral Sword, just to be able to attack your opponent for game. If you want to go for that, you can go for that instead. 1 copy of Boral Load. Boral Load is really easy to go into as well, because it just takes 3 monsters, 3 effect monsters to go into it. Soryuja, 3 monsters, or 3+ monsters with, or 4+ monsters with different names. It doesn't matter which ones you use. So you can use 3 of your Ojama monsters, like green, black, and yellow, and then any normal summon monsters. If you have Ojama Magic and you have an Ojamatch, it's really easy to go into this card and just be able to special summon another monster from your hand, and then be able to draw 4 and then put 3 of them back, which is really nice to restack your hand. Appaloosa, just to negate stuff. It's really easy to go into. She's really easy to go into. And really easy to summon, because you can target 2, you just basically use 2 monsters with different names except for tokens, and that's really easy to put on the field. So Appaloosa is super easy to summon. 1 copy of Nightmare Unicorn, because Nightmare Unicorn just helps us balance stuff. Phoenix helps us pop spells and traps. All the Ojamas are light monsters, so Hippo Shinigami helps out as well, because the Hippo Shinigami can boost them up by 500, and plus, you sometimes need that monster to get your Ojamas off the field, so this card helps. And then a single copy of Union Carrier. Union Carrier is a neat card in here because it helps you get your Ojamas out of the deck and your other cards out of the deck, and so I play this card as a 1-of. Blockade Board Blocker is a 1-of to me too, because sometimes you need to discard Ojamagic, and this card can discard that Ojamagic. Really easy to add a continuous field spell, or continuous spell or field spell from your graveyard to your hand, which can get you Ojama Country back to be able to resolve that card. So this card comes in really clutch sometimes. And the single copy of number 46, Ronin Raccoon Sendayu. This card's really good because it basically puts an additional beat stick on the field, which is nice to be able to attack your opponent with. It becomes the biggest thing on the field, or matches the biggest thing on the field. So if you already have a 3k monster on the field and your opponent doesn't, you can make it a 3k beat stick by summoning this card and then putting it on the field, which is super nice. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it lived up to your expectations for a semi-pure Ojama deck profile. It's a super fun deck to play around with. It spams out so many Link monsters. It's ridiculous. And it's really easy to summon all those Link monsters to your side of the field, because it's just... it just puts a bunch of monsters on the field. I mean, when you have 1 monster in the deck that when you normal summon it, it puts 4 other monsters on the field. That's a free Appaloosa with just 1 normal summon. I mean, that's crazy. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Hit the bell notification, become part of the notification squad. Definitely tell me what you think of this deck down in the comments down below. And check out the Patreon. It helps make these deck profiles possible. And I'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.